Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great summer. I wanted to go through the report that I just sent out for the class of 2022. I feel like it might give you some better idea of how they did as a class and some finer points. I just want to thank everybody to start, literally down from faculty, staff, administration. I will always say this takes a village. So when I send these reports out, it's always because I feel everyone should be so proud of, how they supported the classes and their accomplishments. All right, so thank you so much. Before I get into it, I want to talk just about trends. The last 2 years, there's been a trend of application counts increasing dramatically. Now, our profile as a school is a strong profile. So a lot of our students are going to be looking at top national universities and liberal arts colleges. You could throw a number out as like the top 200, 300. Okay. Those are the universities and liberal arts colleges that, generally speaking, had large app counts, large increases in apps. Across the country, there are a lot of colleges that are declining in apps. So it's not everybody, it just is, the types of the waters that our students, wade in overall. Do I think these will level out? Yes, they have to. There has to be the honeymoon period has to end, and then hopefully it'll start to level out. But generally speaking, if you have a school and they want to enroll a class of 500 students and they traditionally only have 10,000 applications and all of a sudden they have 15,000, they could be a lot more selective. When they are, more students fall out of favor, it becomes more difficult. So that's really how we've had to become more creative over the years and work a little bit harder. But I'm very proud of the last two classes, and the work that we've all done together. In this area right here on the first tab, you'll notice that 96% of students are going 4 year. Now that's a little lower than the last couple years, but I would say that it's kind of a sign of the times. We have a lot of students that are doing gap years. They're doing postgraduate years for athletics. Maybe they're in a follow-up, not a current recruiting class, but the next recruiting class. And part of that is they have to do a postgraduate year. We also have students that have had challenges. It's been a very difficult time emotionally, mentally for a lot of our students, and some of them have either wanted to take a break, start slowly a community. So this is not, a number that scares me in any way. This was also a bulkier class of 246, so I think that's the way that it worked out. Down here, you'll see we have about we had about 5.5 acceptances per student in the class of 2022. That's really a byproduct of how we advise. We always want them to have two schools that they're rock stars, that they're going to be well above, 3 to 4 that based on the previous year's data, they're in an area where we feel great about, them being admitted, they're a strong fit. And then after that, we tell them go for some of those ones that are possible. Maybe they're possible. Or if they're far reaches that they don't usually bear as much fruit, but maybe a student wants to go for it. Right? We have students, if you look down here, going to 28 different United States universities. Or I'm sorry, 20. They're attending 109 colleges in 28 different states. Also, students annually going to Canada. This year, we had students going to English universities and also, across the UK. So a student who's going to St Andrews in Scotland, which seems to be every other year we have a student go to St Andrews in Scotland, which is cool. All right. So going to the second tab, this is the summary tab. It has everything. This is each student's entire process in terms of admits. So if you look across the board, down in this area, it's the admit rate. It is the admit rate for the school that they're attending. So I'll get to it in the next tab, but a 4% admit rate means that basically, you know, out of every 100 students, 4 students are getting in. Down here, for example, if you have a 20% admit rate, that means that for every 10 students, 2 are getting in. Okay, so this gives you pretty much everything. Good place to look to see where students' preferences were. They're not always going to go where you think they'll go. The conventional wisdom sometimes is, oh, well, wherever is the most difficult, or in terms of perception, they'll go. That's not always the case. So we never tell a student where to go. They define what is of value to them. Okay. This next tab, this is my favorite tab that is probably the tab that I look closest at. when I started here, which it's crazy, it's almost 10 years, the biggest thing I looked at was across, first of all, I looked at the first quartile, all right, which, if you look, traditionally our students, they're going to be attending and accessing the most difficult, most competitive schools in the country, okay, and it shows in this, quartile one notable admit section. But what I look at a lot too, outside of what's the top admit per student, is I'm looking at our class broken into quartiles. This is the end of quartile one. So we might have 60 students that are going for these most competitive schools, and then some, where other schools it might be five, you know. There's a lot of parity in our classes. Then if you look at the second quartile, it ends here. Then the third, then the fourth. And if you scroll back up, what I'm looking at is how are we doing throughout the quartiles? I mean, for us to have students that are just in our top 50 to 75% accessing highly selective and most selective schools, that's outstanding. Now, some of these students you'll look in quartile 3 and 4, they'll stick out. And yeah, some of them might be student athletes as well, but that says something about our profile and about our school's reputation, that some of these colleges that are the most competitive in the country are still going to be able to give a good, strong look, and they're going to be okay in early read processes for these most competitive schools, right? So if you look, this is literally my favorite tab. I'm always looking at seeing what was the best that we did per student in terms of competitive admit, and then how did we do across the board, quartile to quartile. And that's been a big emphasis is, getting our students the best looks. Maybe their GPA is somewhere in the realm, and then how's the rest of their file. If you look at the accepts by college tab, it takes you through pretty much, every single, school that we had at least one admit. There's a lot of, variability. And of course, we're always going to have some schools that are very popular, but I want to make it clear to everybody, we advise students based on where they are and what they want. So they lead and then we match up. So it's not like we're ever just blindly, recommending schools that tend to be popular. That's not how we work it. It could get down to a student saying, I'm only targeting California, Washington, and Oregon, and colleges that are less than 5,000 students and have biomedical engineering. We'll meet them where they are. So really, it leads with them. Okay. Most of you'll see as we go into the next tab, the matriculation tab, the majority of the colleges that our students are going to attend might get 1 to 2 students. 1 to 2 students. Yeah, there's a slew of about 10 to 15 colleges annually that might get 4 or 5 or more, but they're really the anomaly across the board. Okay. So this is cool. It kind of gives you an idea of where students are gravitating towards and attending. If you look at this next tab, matriculation by state, 194 of our students are going to go somewhere or did decide to go somewhere on the eastern seaboard from Massachusetts down to Florida. All right. I would say the most common area that our students are comfortable looking in, if I had to give one general area, would be Massachusetts down to South Carolina, Massachusetts down to Florida. All right. If you look, Indiana has a big amount where there's 10 students attending some universities in Indiana. But across the board, pretty much if you look, most students are going to be looking somewhere or attending somewhere in this area, in this zone. Okay, so it's 204, you take away the 10, 194. If you look at the next tab, this is always a cool, I've had some good discussions, with administration about this too, about how our electives, and things that we have reflect our students' interests. Right off the bat, you could see the biggest spike is management. Do I think sometimes it's by default? Yes. Do I think it's also a trickle down from a lot of parents working in some form of management, whether it's in corporate America or finance, marketing, accounting? Yeah, I would say that's part of it too. So 83 students that said my intent going into college, how I applied is through some form of management. Okay. Then if you look here, for computer science, engineering, health science, sciences, and math, that's a really big number, almost to the same amount as management that are in some form of STEM, some form of STEM. All right. Now, I put in the notes section down here that you'll see not all colleges allow a student to be purely undecided. Some do. Some will say you're totally fine being totally undecided. Others will demand in the app process, hey, we just need to know what bucket you want. We don't need to know you want biomedical engineering, but we need to know that you want to be in the School of Engineering and Sciences. So that's also a subjective piece behind the scenes that happens. But this is a really good breakout, at least to see. And I told you not every student reported, but these are students that did give us the information and tell us that. All right. So I hope that this video is helpful and gives you an idea. I'm very proud of the last two classes, and I'm really just so happy with how the community has worked together over the past 2 years. We've certainly had to get very creative from a virtual standpoint, and with other things, it's the only normal is constant change. In our offices and getting creative with students and seeing what trends are happening and making sure that we're positioning the best that we can based on what's happening in the landscape. And, we'll continue to do so. All right. So thank you, everyone, again. And I hope this is helpful and enjoy the rest of your summer. All right. Take care.